kind of feel like a sociopath grabbing my phone to record myself right now in the middle of this crazy emotion. But it's important that you get to see how I feel right now, because this is how you affect me. I'm really freaking sad. I'm trying to do some work this morning and I can't, and I stop and I'm bawling, crying. Why am I sad? I'm sad because I've had my last therapeutic session with my psychologist, and I grew to love my sessions with my psychologist, and I'm a little embarrassed to be crying about it. I actually really cherished that time talking with him. His name was Martin Overstreet. And he was so respectful and so courteous. And it took so long to express like really sensitive things. And the way that it happened over like several months, the way our conversations developed over several months, the way things were naturally and organically shared and expressed and talked about and figured out, it felt divine. It felt like God was working through my life to bring these conversations with my psychotherapist and have these, and it was so good. But I can't have those sessions anymore because my immediate family members, my brother, my sister, and my mother, are so disrespectful that they went behind my back to email my psychotherapist without telling me about it, without asking my permission, telling him a bunch of stuff about me and my history and my dad and his dad and all this stuff about our family. That what they did is they tainted the professional relationship I had with my psychotherapist. He is legally obliged to end our relationship because of the information they divulged to him without my permission, and it skews his ideas about what's going on in me and my family. It's the professional thing to do, but we have to end our relationship, and it's sad for both of us because we've both put a lot of time and energy into sharing some very sensitive things and taking a very conscious, loving approach to some very painful subjects. And then you three just come in and destroy it all with your own opinions about things. It's frustrating that you don't recognize the impact, the damage that you have in life. I receive a lot of it. I don't know if other people feel the same way and tell you how you affect them, but you affect me really badly, and it makes me really hurt a lot. I've hurt like this a lot over a lot of years. I'm an adult now, and I really don't want to feel like this anymore. I want to be a healthy adult with an integrated psyche, a man who can operate with a sense of integrity, a man who tells people how he feels in an honest way so that he can create healthy boundary conditions to keep people in his life from psychologically and emotionally abusing him, projecting false narratives and saying things that are so hurtful that it damages his psyche. Those boundary conditions need to be created to keep people like that out of my life. And Michael, Marion, and Sherry, I don't even consider you guys family. When my therapist asks me how my family is, pictures of different people's pop into my mind. When he wants to know about you guys, he has to ask me about my biological family, because that's what I consider you guys. Biological family. I'm related to you guys, and because of that, there are legal attachments, emotional attachments, things that give you guys the feeling that you have a reason, a right to come into my life and hurt me, and you don't have that right. And you haven't listened to me in the past. You haven't respected me in the past when I've tried to create these boundary conditions. And now I have to create a really strong boundary condition. I'm going to ask you, please, with all due respect, do not attempt to communicate with me. Do not attempt to communicate with anyone in my life to gain information about me. Do not have anyone in your life attempt to communicate with me for you. Those are three very specific things I'm mapping out for you, and I'm pointing them out because I want to make sure you're conscious of these three very different things. Do not communicate with me. Do not attempt to communicate with me. Do not attempt to have anyone in your life communicate with me on your behalf. And do not attempt to gain information about me from anyone in my life. Do not attempt to communicate with anyone in my life to gain information about me or share information about me. Okay, do you get that? I trust that you three are intelligent, conscientious, people. You have the capacity to be courteous. I believe that about you. I want to at least treat you in that way, because I believe that, if we treat someone as though they ought to be treated, then we allow them to become everything they're capable of being. I believe that. I also believe if we don't treat someone as though they ought to be treated, then we actually hinder them from becoming everything they're capable of being. And in my life, the people that hinder me from being who I'm capable of being are, well, specifically my brother Michael, my half-sister Marion, and my mother Sherry. Specifically, those three people hinder me tremendously from being the person I'm capable of being, but via the way that they treat me. And recently, they've begun to do that by sending emails to people in my life, unbeknownst to me. These communications have reached the total of like 28 pages back and forth over months of time, without talking to me or telling me what's going on. This is really, like, legally, it's harassment. And it breaches, I think the terms we use are slander and libel, the way that you guys talk about me. I've tried to tell you that the way you guys talk about me seems to me like you're talking about somebody else, probably because I haven't spent a significant amount of time with you three in about a decade or more. So literally the person you imagine me to be is this extrapolated projection based on what you know from a long time ago. And the stuff you've said in your emails actually talks about my father, my grandfather, more than me, and it alludes to this idea that you think this genetic predisposition is affecting my psychology. I know that there have been delusions of grandeur in your family, Mom, and I know like your mom had an issue with going to the mental institution one time or something. I'm not trying to say that is a possibility in your life. I'm not trying to question your psychological health. I'm only trying to suggest that Mom specifically might be holding on to a narrative, a very damaging narrative of our life that might not actually be the true narrative of events that took place. And I think that the attitude our mother holds on to that narrative with is psychologically, not only psychologically damaging, it's really abusive, actually. But it's been really damaging to me, even though the narrative isn't specifically about me. It's more so about my grandfather, my father, and my half-sister, and kind of a lot of things that happened with those three, and the scenario it set in place in our family, and how that scenario may have like affected me, and I'm a product of that, and this scenario that my mother holds on to so strongly, that my father's father was a sociopathic liar who sexually molested my half-sister Marion when she was 3 or 4. My mother holds on to that narrative so strongly that she actually, as my sister grew up, I spoke with my sister about this, and she doesn't even have any memories or recollections of any abuse happening. All there is this narrative my mother holds on to that says she was a victim of sexual abuse. And as what I imagine as a child growing up, if I was a child and I didn't have any memories of being sexually abused, but my mother kept saying I was sexually abused, you're a victim of sexual abuse. You're a victim of sexual abuse. She's a victim of sexual abuse, everyone. She needs to be taken care of because she's a victim of sexual abuse. All of her problems that she has are because she's a victim of sexual abuse. If I was a child in that scenario and I didn't have memories of being sexually abused, but my mother kept saying that about me, I would feel pretty crazy inside. I would get really frustrated, and I'd probably have a really hard time loving my mother. I probably would not have a loving relationship with my mother if that was the scenario. So I would really hate it if that was the case. And with that in mind, I just want to suggest that, Mom, I think it's important that you make sure that you have forgiveness in your heart for Ray Martin. From what I've spoken with Marion and Rick, my father, about, there's a great possibility. It's more than just a theoretical possibility. There's a great chance that Marion was not even sexually molested. And so we at least need to be able, as a family, just to have a loving conversation and say, it's possible if Marion doesn't remember it happening, then maybe she wasn't sexually molested, and we can at least say that in a way to forgive Ray Martin, or at least say that he might not have been a sociopathic liar. Maybe he was a repentant man. He might have been really bad in the past, but maybe he actually did repent. Maybe he felt bad and changed. I think it's important that we allow everyone in life, really, at least the respectful opportunity to have the capacity to change as people. If we hold people to an action that they've taken in the past and say, oh, you did this in the past, you are this kind of person and you will always be that kind of person. Well, if we hold people to that, then, well, dang, I don't know who would not receive judgment. I feel like every one of us has messed up somehow in the past, and the only thing that, allows life to continue working is that we kind of forgive each other and allow each other the opportunity to learn from our mistakes. And I think that the way that would actually look and sound in our family's scenario is, it would look like forgiveness towards Ray Martin. And it would sound like a conversation that goes something like, maybe he didn't molest Marion. And maybe, maybe the trauma that she went through was not because she was sexually abused, but because someone was holding a false narrative over her and projecting that reality onto her, and actually limiting her capacity to be everything she's capable of being. Maybe that was the case. And I think it's important that we just at least explore that possibility. Because I'm trying to find some way to hold forgiveness for my deceased grandfather. The man's not around to talk about what happened or give his side of the story anymore. So I think it's at least like respectful and courteous for me to find some way to try and find forgiveness for the man. And so that's what I've come to, and I want to share that with you guys, because I believe it's important that we do share these things. So I want you guys to know how I feel. God bless.